There you go.
Should we go dead?
No. Well,
Okay.
maybe. I just realized I was on the right side, and that would have bugged me when I edited. I would have been like, "Oh, no,
that's
no, no!"
fair. This was wrong.
And then we would have had to re-record it, and I would have had to send
Everything.
you a script. And
yeah, I would appreciate it if you sent me the script, though.
Oh, I'll send you the script.
Thank you.
We'll go full NFL script writer.
Should we practice it ahead of time? Should we get together and rehearse?
Obviously.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you not been doing that? Who have I been talking to then for rehearsal?
No, I know. I don't know. I was spacing on rehearsal for a minute. Speaking of which, we actually watched a new show. We haven't finished it yet, but we're most of the way through. And if you haven't seen it yet, you should, I think. And it is Barry.
Oh,
starring
I really
Bill Hader on HBO.
Yeah. I've seen clips of Barry, and I really want to watch the whole thing.
It's fucking insane.
Yeah. Well, because it's like all Bill Hader, and it's like it was like the Bill Hader awakening for people to realize that he was more than just like the funny dude, and he's like the creative force behind that.
Yeah, right. But it's excellent.
That's good. That's good. What have I watched? So Sydney and I are watching through Suits right now.
Okay.
Because we like those like USA shows. They're fun. We watched White Collar, which is such a good one. Neil Caffrey. Oh my God. Matt Bomer is maybe the most attractive man in the world. I don't even know if it's close to anybody else.
I'd have to see him.
Oh, hold on. You shall see him.
Because what about Jimmy G? It's at least got to be close.
You'll be the judge. You'll be the judge.
Okay.
I gotta get a good pick. A good pick of them. Do I go for... No, I mean, you don't go for one of him and Magic Mike.
You don't want to be too forward.
The perfect in White Collar as well. The perfect thirst trap. If my screen will... Okay, here we go. Now I can share.
Come on.
What's happening?
Not screen sharing.
It's working now. Well, I clicked the button for it to work. There we go. That's Matt Bomer.
Okay. I understand the argument.
He's a wonderful man. Also can sing and obviously a good actor.
Oh, well, that's the way to your heart right there.
Yeah, I'm aware. Never been anything but predictable and transparent in that.
No. Oh, I know. Oh, man. Should we do the show or something?
Hello. Oh,
or just keep talking about this Matt Bomer guy. I mean, if he sings, does he have any albums?
He does not. Oh, man.
You hate to see that. I almost
believe this was a real person for half a second.
Yeah, that's
rough.
Sad.
It's all right.
Yeah, it takes the pressure off, though. Takes the pressure
For
off.
a second, I was like, oh, man, a human. What does this mean?
Yeah, felt strange.
All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm going to say 3, 2.
Wait. Oh, my God. Nick, look at the camera. Did you not see the camera was with me still big because I shared my screen and you tiny.
Okay,
that's
fine.
How we were about
that's
to start.
That's how we do it today. 3, 2, 1, go.
Hey, TotemTalks. Hey, TotemTalks. Hey, TotemTalks.
Well, do you think it'd be all right if we could just roll into today's show? I mean, that was It was promising, but I was hoping that you knew any other parts of the song, like maybe just a line or two.
I know other words of the song, but like the part of the song that I think is the most iconic is that. That's the part that a lot of people remember,
It's
and
true.
it's only one word. I can't.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I'm really backed into a corner.
Yeah,
and I mean, good luck getting me to sing a song from the other band. It's not going to happen.
No, God no. Although you might be able to share some of the vocal range.
Yeah, that's sadly accurate. All right, welcome in everybody to another episode of Totem Talks. And we're in the half seasons. This is season 7.5, episode 2. And this little mini season I'm calling That's So 90's. And so that's what this is.
I love it.
If you are new to Totem Talks, welcome in. It's nice to see you. We're a music podcast. We are dissecting every single musical artist that ever has existed.
And that is literally dissecting them.
Yes, you are correct. Well, I mean that's more incredible than if it's everyone to ever exist.
It depends. It depends on the
if we're reanimating the dead just to dissect them, I feel like that's impressive. I'm impressed with us.
Yeah, it would be.
Okay, real quick. I know I'm tangenting right in the beginning.
That's fine. You always do.
Did you hear? Mozart released a new song.
Yes. And you know how I found out about it?
How did you find that out?
I found out about it through a meme about Mozart dropping new music before George R.R. Martin drops The Winds of Winter.
Oh my God. Which is true. Honestly, George, release it. Please.
Seriously.
Dude, I need to know.
I'm going to have to reread all 5 of those books again, before he actually releases it, because it's been so long since I read them that I no longer have any idea.
I think 6 and 7 are done.
That would be. You think he's waiting to
until
die and then release them so he doesn't have to deal with any negative reception?
I think that. Whew. I think they're written and done, and I think he's going to die, and then they're going to be like, these are coming out one each year. They're done.
That would be crazy.
I mean, I feel like at this point, that's the strategy.
Yeah.
Like he knows that he's never going to please everyone.
That's true.
Speaking of pleasing everyone, Nick.
Oh, yeah.
You're Nick, I'm Pat, Totem Talks, music podcast. We talked about it. We had a blast. Please check out our back catalog. We've covered such artists as...
I couldn't name one if you put a gun to my head.
That's a long name for a band, but such artists as Beck, Elton John, The Beatles.
Led Zeppelin.
Eagles.
Prince.
Yeah, all of these.
All of them.
Oh my gosh, what's the
Sleepy Time Gorilla Music?
Yeah, Sleepy Time. That's exactly what I was thinking.
I just read your mind.
If you ever need somebody to play the spatula, check out Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum.
Or The Thing.
Yes, correct. But why don't we talk about who we're covering today?
And we should. And so here is what it is. It's Hole and it's Gin Blossoms, and those are the artists.
Those are the artists. If you couldn't tell by my interpretive rendition of Hey Jealousy to open the show. I guess, you know what, Nick?
Let's just talk about Hole.
Yeah, honestly, as I mentioned to you when we discovered what the order today was, you always got to start with the Hole. You always got to start with Hole. Right to Hole. And with that being said, Hole was an American alternative rock band formed in Los Angeles, California. And they were formed in 1989. They were active until 2002. And then 7 years later, hopped back on the horse for 3 more years, 2009 to 2012. And then they called it. Yep. There may be some talks about reunions and reformations and stuff, as I see on the little list here. Has not happened yet. Right. We covered 3 of the 4 Hole albums. So 3 of the 4 holes. Show me the 4th hole. Anyway.
Oh my God. That sounds.
Pretty
You
on
know what
the.
that sounds like? That sounds like a Limp Bizkit album title.
Oh my god!
That's what you just created.
Another
here
artist that we
today.
covered on the podcast,
That's
Limp
true.
Bizkit. I'll tell you what, you can skip that one if you like Limp Bizkit.
That's a great point.
If you don't like Limp Bizkit, check that one out because, spoiler alert, neither
We do
did
not.
we. All right. Now, back to the 3 albums that we covered from Hole. We started with Pretty on the Inside from 1991. Then we went through Live Through This in 1994 before wrapping up with Nobody's Daughter in 2010.
That's right.
And those are the 3. Sorry to Celebrity Skin, the only Hole album we did not cover.
Yeah,
But there's
which
always
was
Best of the
also
Rest, which it
named
doesn't
after
qualify
what I
for.
think is arguably the most popular Hole song. So
Probably, actually.
yeah. But anyway, Pretty on the Inside. I will talk a little bit about this album. It has a lot of very positive reviews. It has a cult following. It was produced by Kim Gordon of Sonic Youth.
Tells me all I need to know about it.
Right. So you can tell this is definitely the critical darling type of record. And if you'll remember last week, I don't know if you can remember that far back, but we covered Mudhoney. And I was like, wow, they're just like really angry and frustrated. And all that is what comes through in their music in a way that wasn't nice to listen to for us. I think Courtney might be angrier than they were. I think she might be more pissed off on this album. So much, I guess, to the point where actually Courtney Love of Now doesn't even really like this album. She's criticized it quite a bit, said it was unlistenable and had nothing melodic. She's softened that criticism as of late, but I tend to agree with it. It was mostly unlistenable, and there was nothing melodic.
I was about to say, Courtney Love, excellent critic of this album.
Yes, she really hit the nail on the head when she called it those 2 things. I was not a fan. If you told me right now, even though the timeline wouldn't add up, that she sang every one of these songs while giving birth to her daughter, I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Listen, I couldn't agree more. This album was awful. It was so
yes, that's
bad.
what I was saying.
And here's the thing about this album. I've heard parts of this album before, and so this is really what I expected all of Hole to be like.
Okay. Interesting.
And I was scared. I'm scared of Hole.
I've heard that before.
I just like it's just yelly, loud, but like in a strange way, like strangely loud.
It's strangely loud.
Well, it's just like it's loud in the same way like New York City traffic is loud.
Yeah,
it's just different noises.
Sure,
it's not music.
You know, I definitely expected. I think going into this, for this to be more grunge than it was punk, and it was way
more punk. Yeah. I would agree with all
a disappointment.
A disappointment. Yeah, just we're a little down on Hole so far. Let's see if Hole number 2 could redeem us with Live Through This 1994. And I took the album's advice and I lived through it.
I can tell.
It's still bad. Now, before we get too far into how bad it is better than the first album.
Oh, yeah.
Because throughout this album, I recognized that music was being played.
Yeah, I would agree.
It is still not good at all, but it's better.
Yeah.
Like, if you gave me the choice between listening to the first album or getting punched in the face, I'm 50-50. On this album, I'm 70-30.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. And those are a lot of my notes as well, that this is definitely an improvement.
You had a note
Um,
about the getting punched in the face thing?
no, I didn't say that
Oh,
exactly.
okay. I mean,
Just that it was an improvement, but I also still didn't enjoy it. Melodies were present. There were parts or small sections of songs that I found listenable, like I not objectionable even. Like, okay, hold on, there's 10 seconds of this that might be something. No, no, and then it was gone. So I think the fact that there were even small parts within several of the songs that were listenable is why this is better for us. And it was also listed as number 106 on Rolling Stone's top 500 albums of all time and 84 on Enemy's list.
an enemy is an enemy of me for that.
They are. And then we get to Nobody's Daughter. So a lot of time has passed. The band has like broken up and gone on hiatus and gotten back together several times. And my first thought was like, we sure this is still Courtney singing? Because her voice was deep. Like she was
Yeah.
way down there from what I expected. But I guess from all of the constant screaming, maybe she really messed with her voice so much that she lost all of her top end. I don't know. She screams a lot less on this record, so um, this was also better. There's just like been a constant upward trajectory for Hole for me because the songs were semi-listenable. Um, it felt like maybe more of the grunge than the punk was influencing where they went with their sound finally. So you had songs where like melodic singing was done all the way through. Um, Sometimes I was like, are we getting a little old for some of these lyrics? There were definitely moments like that.
Well,
Um,
that's because there's multiple writers, and the other writers are much younger.
yeah, well, they okay,
They're not. It's
maybe.
Billy Corgan and Linda
Oh,
Perry.
oh, yeah, they're not that much younger, are they?
I don't think
Uh,
at
at
all.
all. Um, I mean, it was clearly one of three for me. It's still like it's probably a record I would have a lot more critiques of if it wasn't clearly the most listenable thing that the band had put out for my tastes. So take that for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I'll say. At the clip that she was putting out albums, I feel like the 2024 whole album
Might be good.
would both be excellent and contain a Johnny Cash cover.
Yeah.
Just for the pitch that she could sing at that
It
point.
will contain a Tennessee Ernie Ford cover.
Please let them do that song.
So
Okay.
like way down there.
She's got a lower voice than you now.
Oh yeah.
But listen, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. It's definitely the best of the three. Where it ranks in the 6 we listened to this week, I'll let you guess. But I still didn't like it. It's more listenable, but I think only compared to the first two albums and not compared to like music I like.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
Also, like realistically, I just don't like Billy Corgan, and I saw him on this album. Went,
Sure.
hey, all right, Billy,
I understand.
and that's all I got. So, Nick,
All right.
you want to tell us some
Shall
whole
I
facts?
just get all right, good. I do. I don't know if I want to do it like that. I'm actually going to start where I felt like I had the most struggle in researching this group, which is the unique thing. Because there was interesting stuff for me to cover pretty much everywhere else. And you kind of, sometimes, as I'm sure you know, you have to kind of make the choice as to how you want to frame a certain fact or anecdote that you find. Like, is this really more of a 6 degrees or is that really a highlight or something like that, you know?
Yeah,
And I just didn't know exactly where this fit in, but I think it's just the way that this band was covered or viewed by the public. There were like constant John and Yoko comparisons in the media about Kurt and Courtney. Then, obviously, with Kurt's tragic death, there are long-standing conspiracies about Courtney Love's participation in that. there's like even Live Through This, which was their biggest album. Um, like there are allegations that not serious allegations, but I guess I should say conspiracies again that like Kurt Cobain actually wrote all of the music for that album. He does have some backing vocal parts on the record, but he did not write the music. So basically, their whole existence has sort of been like overshadowed and attacked for their connections to Kurt Cobain in a way that I think is probably mostly just unfair to them.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
I agree with you there.
I mean, the whole band doesn't deserve to have all of their accomplishments questioned, the songs that they wrote, what the different members contributed. That's them, and I don't know enough about the Courtney and Kurt relationship or situation to speak on that in any way. But I don't know.
Fair.
So the coverage of the band is, I think, what is unique about them. So going into the 6 degrees, there's some interesting ones here. So I will first say when they first released their initial album, they opened for Mudhoney on their European tour in 1991. So got
There
that
we
connection
go.
just the last week.
Nothing like Mudhoney and Hole.
Yeah, exactly. And Courtney Love actually became more famous before she was a singer as an actress in some bigger movies in the 80s that I didn't actually even know about until now. But
Mm-hmm.
she was in the film Sid and Nancy, as well as Straight to Hell, which also featured Joe Strummer and Elvis Costello. So she actually worked as an actress for a time in the 80s and also as a stripper to help finance the bands that she was in. And she was bouncing around so much in California looking for bands and like work at different things. She was actually for a very brief time in the band Faith No More in San Francisco for like a hot minute. She has a very weird and interesting story. But we'll get to that when we cover her as a solo artist.
Yeah, of course.
Try not to dig too much up, in that direction. But what I'm going to go with as my actual 6 degrees is Hole, along with Soundgarden and the estate of Tom Petty, as well as the estate of Tupac, who we have not covered, actually sued Universal Music Group after an article from 2019 came out that basically kind of insinuated that the famous fire that we've talked about so many times that destroyed the masters of so many different albums and catalogs of artists was actually way worse than originally reported that they let on. And so all of those artists kind of were suing them over damages for this false information, essentially. Although Hole eventually dropped out after finding out that none of their stuff had been damaged and they were totally fine. But they were initially in that lawsuit with Soundgarden and the estate of Tom Petty. So 6 degrees.
Yeah, you've done well.
Thank you. For highlight, I decided to go with Celebrity Skin because, one, I think it's their most recognizable song, at least in the United States. So the fact that we didn't cover it at all, and that's because it wasn't on their biggest album, even though they only had 4. This album was very close to being their biggest album. They were almost identical numbers with Live Through This. So the fact that after kind of a lot of turmoil in the group, like to create Live Through This, they lost half the band, had to rehire new people because of creative differences. They make this record, and then a week before it's released, Kurt Cobain commits suicide. And then, like 2 months after, while they're on their Live Through This tour, Kristen Pfaff dies of an overdose. So all of this stuff happens to them, and they have to just like go on hiatus, so that it just shuts down the band. And then they eventually pull it together and come back to a huge hit and an album that, hits basically what their peak of success was a few years after this. So I think not just on the fact that it's a very popular song, but the fact that their highlight kind of comes in off of all of these things that are really their low light, is what makes it. So I threw both of those in together. I blended them,
Yeah,
like a fine rosé.
of course.
Yeah.
Mix things up in whole. I get it.
Yeah. And then I've got meanest and nicest. Um, I didn't find a ton on this being an enormous issue. And it seems like, the band has been seen together and things are okay between the members since. But the reformation of Hole to do their last album, Nobody's Daughter, was basically contested by their guitarist, Eric Erlandson, who was basically like, I have an agreement with Courtney. Like, she can't revive the name and tour with it without me. Together, we are whole.
Yeah.
We are whole. Two is one, we are whole.
Yep.
And so it seemed like that was maybe a bad thing to do because it was Courtney and it was all new people. The drummer did not return, and also like from the first album they lost half the band. Faf passed away, and then even her replacement, none of those people were involved. All different people. So I think it was like maybe if you're gonna use the name, how about the other long-standing members have a say, or apparently they disagreed with you doing it type of thing. And then here's a point in Courtney's favor for the nice. In 2021, she hosted a big art exhibition for the 30th anniversary of Pretty on the Inside. And all of the proceeds went to different women's charities that helped with things like addiction as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's everything I got.
That's
got
your whole theory.
Yeah, I think that's it.
All right.
Okay. So let's go on to the Gin Blossoms then.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's blossom.
We'll blossom together.
I got trapped reading the many theories surrounding the death of Kurt Cobain.
Oh God. Yeah, I tried to stay away from it in the sense that I know she's a solo artist, so maybe that's the time to dig into the Kurt stuff. But I also don't want to promote conspiracy theories for something that could be that damaging to someone if I really have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I listen. I know. It's just interesting.
It is.
Anyway, Gin Blossoms.
Yeah. I found out about you. You could have gone with that one. You found out about TotemTalks.
It's true. I could have done that. That would have also.
Did we cover that one? Yeah, we did. Okay.
Yeah, it's a New Miserable Experience.
Gotcha. And Dusted. What's the one that's on?
I'll be honest.
Follow You Down is the one that's on Congratulations. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'll be honest though. While they were the same, there was enough different. Like the tempo changes they did between the two made it.
Look, if I was going to have to listen to two of very similar to almost albums, the same albums by one of these bands this week, there was a clear answer.
Couldn't agree more. All right, Dusted. Bam, 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 bam. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Okay.
All right.
3, 2, 1.
Gin Blossoms is an American alternative rock band formed in 1987 in Tempe, Arizona. And here, bear with me. There's just a couple here.
I'll do it.
1987 was when they formed. They went to 1997. And then 2001, hop back on the train, and they're still going strong.
Okay, yeah, I followed that pretty easy. Cool. That wasn't so bad at all.
Just making sure. We covered 3 albums, as always. Unlike with Hole, this is half of their albums, so there's 6 total.
Right.
So we started with Dusted from 1989. We started with Dusted from 1989. We followed that up with New Miserable Experience from 1992. And then wrapped up with Mixed Reality from 2018.
Okay.
That's what we got. And this is my group,
Tell me.
so I'll get us started. So Dusted is an independent release of a lot of the same songs that you're going to talk about in New Miserable Experience.
Yes.
New Miserable Experience is their first big label release.
Mm-hmm.
Which this has been done before, and we've covered them like this on the podcast before, to varying degrees of annoyance, we'll say.
Yeah.
Because essentially listening to at least half of the same album twice.
Right.
One thing that I liked about the Gin Blossoms version, besides the fact that I just like the Gin Blossoms sound, and it's very present right away.
Definitely.
There is no fan of the Gin Blossoms who won't immediately recognize them from the first song here. Now, what I just mentioned to you before we started this, the tempos that they use in the first album are clearly younger, we'll say.
Sure, yeah.
And by that I mean they're just pushing the tempos are slightly faster, and they're slightly more pushing the tempo even as it's faster throughout the entire album, which I thought was interesting. You could feel even though it's only a couple of years, that's even a year,
right,
it's not like a long time, or it's like 3 years.
Yeah,
you could hear the change between a band who came up with these songs and is so pumped about them, and this is their, and then somebody who's figured it out a little bit more. Everything's a little more mellow as you move on, but Dusted is pumping and it's kicking. And I think there's a couple of these songs that I prefer the Dusted version, like Cajun Song.
Okay.
Which is the second track on this one, and it's I don't even know what number it is on the second one. We'll talk about that when we get there. But Cajun Song, I prefer the Dusted version for sure. It's the little bit of the faster tempo and a little more drive. And also because it's an independent release, sometimes the lack of studio polish adds to a band.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think that on some of these songs, it added to it. Although, let's be real, on their big hits, I still prefer the other versions. But
which is probably partially why they're big hits.
I would agree. But all in all, this was an enjoyable listen to me.
I agree. And I have a lot of the same notes. One, just the overall, hey, this is a couple of their biggest hits. This is a lot of the same songs that we're going to cover on the next album. Definitely hear their sound right away. I knew it was the Gin Blossoms, not knowing more than 3 songs, and definitely not knowing what to expect from this album as a self-release before the popular ones. And I immediately knew it was them. Part of my issue with this, my only issue with the album, to be clear, I think might have been YouTube, because this is not available on Apple Music, so it's another one I had to go to YouTube for. And the guitars really were very warbly to the point where it sounded almost wrong, or they would sound almost a little out of key from the warbling. And I think it could be. Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say I think it's YouTube. I think it could be the way it was uploaded.
So yes, but it also, a lot of times when you get those like bootlegs on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
they are like recorded, like analog
Yeah,
recorded.
right.
So it
Mm-hmm.
definitely could be something like that as well, where
It
it's
could have
like an
been.
analog record or an analog recording
Yeah,
of the CD.
sure. And that was a little bit persistent on this record, but I eventually got past it, and I decided that I overall really enjoyed the album, and I felt like the sound was a little ahead of its time. Like it's 89. This sounded like a band coming out in like 93 or 94 to me.
Yes.
Um,
And it makes a lot of sense when you think about when New Miserable Experience came out with all these same songs.
100%. Yeah, like this, and again, this is a band to just get on to New Miserable Experience, which is a very good record. Um, I think they benefited a lot from the big studio for the most part. Like I know you have a few songs that you might prefer the other
Yeah.
way, but it sounds really good. Um, and they have some really great guitar playing snuck in here, like some excellent classic rock style blues licks in these songs, that just give you like a slightly different flavor than the 90s alternative rock that this type of sound comes to define. Um, and I decided probably like halfway through this album that I'm putting them in like that blind melon category of 90s bands that are known for a small number of songs, but could have easily been remembered as like one of the better artists of their genre in their time. Like
Agreed.
could have been remembered a lot bigger. And of course, just like the opposite of some of the issues with the whole records we had, this was not really well reviewed at first. And it took an entire year before Hey Jealousy actually broke the top 40. So like this album spread by word of mouth of people, a lot of people really liking it and thinking that it was really good, and then eventually found its way to the charts.
Yeah. Listen, couldn't agree with you more all the way through your review there. I think 90% of the songs, the studio upgrade also upgraded the songs.
Sure.
I think it's pretty clear. Doug Hopkins and Jesse Valenzuela both crushed the guitar, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Robin Wilson's voice is so interesting to me because it feels so effortless.
Sure. Yeah, I get that.
Like it feels very conversational in the songs. Like I don't ever feel like he's like really trying too hard.
Yeah.
But it sounds good. It sounds good, and there's definitely a more varied range in the songs than I would have expected.
Sure.
Listening, and by that I mean both his vocal range and also when I think of the Gin Blossoms, there's like 3 or 4 hits that kind of jump out at you, and they all have a similar sound.
Definitely.
So I was surprised that there was maybe like 3 songs here, but it's still a good number that sounded pretty damn different from that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had mentioned Cajun Song, that definitely sounds different than Gin Blossom songs, but there's just a couple that are very interesting to me. Like Cheatin' rounded out the album.
Okay.
That was another one that was quite different from a typical Gin Blossom song to me. So I just liked that it wasn't all the same thing, because I feel like if usually if a band's all their big hits sound the same, they may sound the same. That's just what they sound like.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's a double-edged sword that we talk about all the time. Like really very clearly having a sound that defines you, that's unique, and also like, is that the only thing you can do?
Yeah. If it's going to be the only thing you can do, it better be significantly better than everyone else. That's all I'll say.
Right. Yeah.
But I'll take us into mixed reality. So quite a time jump here. So we're going from 1992 till 2018. First thing I noticed was, especially coming from Hole, where it was a similar time jump, maybe even less time actually. Now, she was only till 2010.
Right.
The extreme difference in Courtney Love's voice. Robin Wilson sounded a little older, but not a ton of drop off in his voice.
Not really.
Barely a lowering of the range. Still had a youthful sound to it. It held up really well. Musically, I think this is probably my third of 3. Maybe I don't know. I'm torn between that and
Sure.
Dusted because of the similarity of between
Yeah.
Dusted and New Miserable. It just felt to me like it was more trying to capture than just existing in itself.
Okay.
With with one subtle difference, and that is the song "The JFK Shit Show," which was just a 30-second
show.
Yeah, a 30-second bucket of ice cold water dropped on me right before the end of this album, where I'm just listening to the Gin Blossoms and I'm enjoying the album. I want to be
Sure.
clear. I know I said it's, not my favorite, but I still enjoyed it. I enjoyed all three of these albums. I can now definitively say the best whole album ranked 4th of the week for me.
Correct. I would agree.
But I'm just listening to the Gin Blossoms, and this is a longer album too. Their first album was like 36. New Miserable was 45, and this one is 54.
So what are we increasing by?
Well, we're increasing by what, 9 minutes?
Yeah. Very
9
good.
minutes each. That's the math.
You've passed the Keystone exams.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Good. Thank you. But yeah, like it's a longer album, and so I'm like really like in the zone. I'm working as I'm doing this, and then JFK Shit Show comes on. I'm just like, what has happened? I did a full like triple take on my phone. Like, what are you telling me, phone? And then the next song is just right back to being the Gin Blossoms. It was very interesting.
It was. Yeah, that was also the big stand-up moment to me. And to comment on what you said, to maybe build upon it, the band did call this album sort of a companion album to New Miserable Experience. It was written largely, I believe, while they were touring for the New Miserable Experience 25th anniversary tour. And so I think they were in a certain headspace, and they were thinking about writing songs that they hadn't written in a long time. I forget who said it, but somebody's like, we haven't written songs like that since we were 25 or something along those lines. So it actually kind of made me wonder, like, I heard that direct line of Gin Blossom's sound from the 90s to now.
Yeah.
I wonder if the albums in the middle are any different, or like for them to specifically talk about this album as being more of a callback to New Miserable Experience. Where did they go in between?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
So
actually.
that's something where that was kind of my biggest wonder after this. But I generally, again, I liked the album. I thought this was a good listen from beginning to end overall. And also, you mentioned the JFK Shit Show, but the song that it goes right into, like it ends and then it goes right into the first lyrics of Devil's Daughter.
Yeah.
It's an interesting.
It's an
clever. Interesting experience.
Yeah, it is. I recommend that part at least.
Yeah.
I recommend the whole album actually, but I recommend for sure that.
Definitely. All right.
Cool. I guess I'll give you some facts. So, Gin Blossoms. The unique thing, I was torn. I found a couple things that I thought may be clever. The one that jumped out at me though is just how they got their name.
Okay.
So
I'm curious.
The band's name comes from a photo of an old comedian actor named W.C. Fields.
Okay.
And it was in Kenneth Anger's book of Hollywood called Hollywood Babylon. And it was captioned W.C. Fields with Gin Blossoms. And that referred to the fact that W.C. Fields had rosacea.
Okay.
And they took the picture and called the rosacea, which to anybody who doesn't know is basically just like
me.
Red splotches on your face.
Oh, okay.
Like it's if you saw somebody with rosacea, you would know what I'm talking about.
Gotcha.
It's just like splotchy redness on your face, right around your nose and that area. And it's called rosacea. And they referred in the book, they referred to it as Gin Blossoms, and that's where Gin Blossoms got their name.
Interesting.
A very not the most random I've ever heard, but quite a random finding of your name that will become synonymous with you.
Agreed.
So I'll go into the highlight, and highlight, low light, and meanest all really coincide here.
As they always do.
Yeah. So, New Miserable Experience is the highlight. Obviously, the band got picked up. It was a huge breakthrough album for them. The first single that was Hey Jealousy. It was number 25 on the Hot 100, number 4 on the mainstream rock tracks, and did go gold.
Nice.
The album itself went 4 times platinum. Huge success for them.
Definitely.
Now, the flip side of that, the low light and meanest part of this, during the recording of the album and in preparation for like the tour and things like that, Doug Hopkins was drinking heavily, and he was growing more and more depressed as he was doing that.
Oh boy.
And the other members didn't want to fire Hopkins. They were friends with him. They didn't want to do that. But A&M forcibly removed him from the band. And then this is the part that I don't love. They withheld the $15,000 they owed him until he agreed to sign over half of his publishing royalties and relinquish his entire mechanical royalties for the songs that he wrote.
So they stole from him?
And then he agreed to that because he was in such a dire financial situation. He agreed to sign over half of his publishing royalties. That's so they signed. He signed it over,
like it is.
Yeah, he signed it over to the record company because he didn't want to do that. Now I want to be very clear. 2 of the songs that Doug Hopkins wrote are Hey Jealousy and Found Out About You.
Oh, so the 2 biggest hits on the album that would have made him a lot of money in royalties?
Yeah. Those are both Doug Hopkins. He's the only credited writer on both of them.
Okay.
So there's a bit of issue with that. And then, of course, if anybody doesn't know, Hopkins, after being estranged from the band, he got the gold record for Hey Jealousy.
Okay.
And he was so excited about it because he had never had a gold record. He wanted a gold record.
Sure.
He finally got one for a song that he wrote. He had it hung up in his study for a week. Still depressed and drinking, and now estranged from the band and not friends with them anymore. So 9 days after he did that, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks after he did that, he took it down and destroyed it. And then 9 days after that, he had a detox at an intake consultation in Phoenix St. Luke's Hospital. He left that after 9 days, bought a 38, and then killed himself the next day. So that is what happened. That's the story of Doug Hopkins and this band. That is why their mainstream success is overshadowed by this, because Doug Hopkins was arguably the creative force behind their biggest hits.
Sure.
And he got kicked out from the band, was not a credited member of the band during the album. He's credited as a member of writing in the album.
Okay.
He's credited as a writer and performer, but not as a member of the band. And then that's the aftermath of it all, because he was basically left destitute while the band kind of blew up on his success. And he got the gold record as a credited writer, but I'm not going to say that's all. I mean, obviously he was clearly struggling already, but Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah.
It was brutal to read about.
Yeah. You can't directly say it's the record label's fault, but a little bit.
I mean, clearly he was already drinking and depressed.
They weren't helping.
They certainly weren't helping. I mean, it's one of the more insane predatory things I've heard of them saying, we're not going to give you the $15,000 we owe you until you agree to sign over half of your publishing royalties and your entire mechanical royalties.
I'm sure that a private citizen who wasn't extremely wealthy could totally get away with that in the United States as well. It couldn't just be extremely wealthy corporations who get away with that, right?
No, of course not. I don't know why you would think such a thing.
Yeah, anyone could do it.
So yeah, moving on from that, some of the nice things. This band doesn't really publicize their charity stuff. From what I was reading, I mean, it's clear that they do. Like each
Mhm.
band member has individually participated in multiple like benefit concerts and events to support different causes. I found a little bit about Robin Wilson.
Okay.
He has publicly supported causes like music education and mental health awareness. You know, so they're
Sure.
active in that vein, but it's not one of their
There's
more
not a ton of
publicized
readily
things.
available information.
Yeah. So, and then the 6 degrees of Totem Talks, it's a little weaker, but I'd spent
That's
most of
all
my
right.
research absolutely just like with a pit in my stomach,
Yeah, that makes sense.
reading about this whole Doug Hopkins situation. But after they blew up because of New Miserable Experience, they spent a lot of time in the late night talk show circuit.
Okay.
And during that, they also got picked up to record a song for the soundtrack of the movie Empire Records, which
Okay.
is a known film.
Sure. I've
Uh,
never heard of it until right
well,
now.
another band that contributed to that soundtrack was the Cranberries,
Hey.
who
Okay.
we
Very good.
covered. I also, as I was like scrolling earlier when I was doing my notes for this earlier this week, just couldn't find it again, and I couldn't be bothered to really search. But I know,
I just couldn't be bothered to know this information I'm about to give.
well, you know what? I know I do know it.
Okay.
So in 2009, the Gin Blossoms released a live album called Live in Concert,
All right. Makes sense.
and the album contains a lot of live recordings of their stuff. But one of the other things they have on that album is a live cover version of Elton John's Rocket Man.
Oh, yeah. I think I saw that.
So,
I was looking at the lists of things that were on their live albums.
yep. So another little 6 degrees,
Very cool.
and that's all I got for Gin Blossoms.
Excellent. So let's grade them and get the hell out of here. We're going to start with cultural impact, and we're going to start with whole, as you told me we should.
Yes, always start with whole.
And I think this is definitely a case of a band that is more than the sum of their mainstream hits in terms of cultural impact.
Yes,
Um,
I would completely agree with you.
I mean, not only
Uh,
are a lot of their music very like critically acclaimed. Obviously, it was all just super high profile with the whole Courtney and Kurt relationship, with everything that happened
yeah,
afterwards. They're also, noted as one of the most successful alternative female-fronted bands of all time, and they were listed at number 77 on VH1's Top 100 Hard Rock Bands.
nah. I mean, very
Not,
specific. You're getting really specific with that.
yeah, sure.
Like not like rock bands. You got to specify
Now,
the
hard
hard
rock
rock.
bands.
And I still think I could name 100 hard rock bands better.
Okay, fair. Well, better and more, and VH1's top are different things.
Oh,
Like
clearly, because
goodness
I just
in
heard
the
where
way
they are
that
on
you
the
and I
list.
consider it.
That's
Sure.
true. That's the same problem we
But
have with like Rolling Stones list. It's like,
yeah,
what are you quantifying this
I
for?
don't know.
Like,
I know that when I make a list of the top albums for artists, it's based on how much I enjoy listening to them.
yes, and that's why our lists are
And
always 100%
right.
correct.
And that's why, my listening, I take into account all the things that we talk about each week.
Yeah.
But, anyway, I think they should get a couple of points.
Yeah, realistically, I think you're right. I think the whole Cobain of it all.
The whole with the W?
Yes, the whole in Kurt Cobain of it all.
Yes.
Really does. It took you a
Yikes.
second there. It really does add some points to it. I think I could live with the 2.
Sure. Gin Blossoms. I feel like maybe less instant name recognition and existence in pop culture. A couple more popular songs in the United States, at least, though. I would argue your average person knows more Gin Blossom songs than Hole songs.
Yeah,
So that is a
I would
count in their
very much
favor.
agree with you on that. I would think I think the average person has heard 3 Gin Blossom songs relatively regularly throughout their life.
Okay.
Throughout movies and on various commercials and television.
Sure.
Hey Jealousy, Found Out About You, and Follow You Down are all 3
The 3 that I knew.
bona fide hits.
I mean, that probably puts them in a similar space.
Yeah, I think it would. I was gonna say a 2 for them before we talked about it for Hole. I think that's a good spot for them.
A 2 is what it is then. So Breath of Work Hole only had 4 albums. However, they did have multiple platinums and other certifications in different countries and things like that. So several million in sales worldwide. We're definitely talking about more than just meeting the not losing criteria. I would say they're gaining a 0.1 or 0.2 max.
Okay, let's give them the 0.2. I'm feeling generous.
Sure. Okay, you said that, and now I'm curious what you want to do with them in terms of your enjoyment score.
Oh, I'm going to take away 0.2.
Oh, very good. I'm going to just do the same thing. Not to just be
I'm going to take away 0.2. I'm basically, they're getting a minus 0.1 for the first 2 albums, and I'm leaving the 3rd album alone.
Sure. I get it.
That is what it is for me.
Yes. Gin Blossoms, 6 albums. They're right on a 5. And I think we should do for them what we did for Hole in terms of total worldwide sales for the band. 0.2.
Yeah,
they're definitely in the same sphere.
2 albums that went platinum, one of which went 4 times platinum. So I think giving them a 0.2 works.
Yeah. And then we can add points. And since you went first, I'm giving them a 0.26, and that's going to translate to a 0.3.
And I'm also going to give them a 0.3. This was a group that I was expecting to enjoy, and they exceeded my expectation.
I agree.
By having no songs I didn't like.
Sure. I agree with you. And I'm moving on to instrumental talent. I mean, I think, at least to me, Gin Blossoms was the winner here.
Oh, yeah, because they played better instruments. They were better at playing.
There's better vocals.
Better vocals is, I think, the big one. No offense to Courtney Love, but Courtney Love is not a good singer.
She's a worse screamer.
Yes. The vocals were not strong. On the first album, they were merely a drop in the ocean of suck.
Sure, yeah.
Instrumentally, it was just very noisy. And I want to be clear because, we rag on punk.
Yeah, we do.
I know part of punk is not playing your instruments well. I get that. I totally do. I'm specifically talking about on this album, the instruments were noisy. It wasn't just mediocre playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying it just creates an uncomfortable sound.
It does.
And listen, art is subjective, and if that's what you're going for, you've nailed it. But I don't like that.
I don't like it either.
That's all I'll say.
I'm going to put one of them under the average. I'm going to put the other one over.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Hole is probably, if you want to say in the low 4s, I would allow it.
I'll give a 4 then.
Yeah, but I think Gin Blossoms realistically is probably closer to a 5.7.
I don't disagree with any of that. I was going to go about a point or so under for Hole and in that range above for Gin Blossom. So 5.7 sounds good to me.
Nailed it.
Songwriting. These last 2 categories, Hole is going to start from a 3.4 for their lack of discography.
Yeah, because they're missing 2 albums for our average of 6.
What we have here is a classic tale of this is an influential and different sounding band that changed from album to album, but none of the sounds were particularly good on the songs.
No, and particularly on the 3rd album, I think it was 5 songs out of the total album that were co-written by very famous 90s musicians.
Sure.
So it's like they didn't write them all themselves at that point.
Yeah.
Which, whatever, it's not the biggest deal in the world,
Which
but it
probably
also
would
just
have been
wasn't
different
good.
if Eric Erlandson was still in the band, maybe, for that album.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. I mean, they're starting from a 3.4. How much below that did you want to go?
I could probably, since they're already starting so low, let me put it to you this way. If it was a 5, I'd be giving them a 4.
Okay.
So
I know. I'm going to give them a 2.9.
okay. That's fine because we're starting from a lesser point, so I know they're not going to lose a whole point based on the law of averages.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2.9 works.
Okay. So to contrast the point made about Hole, Gin Blossoms, I think, had a very unique sound. But the problem is that maybe like too much of their discography's got that one identifiable Gin Blossoms.
Yes, and this could, as you had
Not a lot of
mentioned in
range.
your note taking, as you had mentioned, this could very easily be. I'm so sorry to Gin Blossoms fans. The fact that the 3 albums we listened are all surrounding the same thought process of the band.
Sure, yeah.
And like we said, we don't know how different those middle 3 albums are.
Yeah, could change the score drastically had we heard them.
Right. I'm just letting anybody who hears this know where we're coming from. We are only judging it based on what we listened to.
I still think that the answer is a little bit above average, actually.
I agree.
So.
I agree, but if those 3 albums are vastly different from both the other Gin Blossoms albums and each other, and also still very good, it could drastically change the score.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't matter.
No.
It does not matter at all. I think this is a group, personally, that lives in that upper 5 range.
Okay. I think that's totally fair.
Like maybe not quite a 6, but maybe like a 5.9.
Okay.
Because of the enjoyability of it all.
It is very enjoyable. Poetic Talent. The only time I noticed it for Hole was in the 3rd album when it felt a little too juvenile.
Yeah.
And so while, again, like generally speaking, I'm going to agree with the political messages of punk, a lot of times it's just not well written.
Yes. Like it's one of those things where you're an English teacher. You're going to love this.
That's true.
How when you're trying to dissect what an author means, the hidden meanings and things, yes, sometimes, like the whole thing of like sometimes the curtains are just blue. It doesn't signify anything.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But the reason that exists is because more often than not, there are hidden meanings and levels and things in writing, and all of those things exist. And that's what makes it interesting to listen and read things, is the hidden meaning and underlying themes. So when the curtains are blue is just how you write everything. There is no subtext. It's all just text. It's boring.
Yeah.
It's boring no matter how much I agree or disagree. It's just boring. I am bored. I want to hear story. I want to hear like things that make me think.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. So I'm again coming in probably below the average.
I would agree. It's probably a little bit better.
So like 3?
Like a 3. So a little bit better than their songwriting, but still not great.
Sure. Then we go to Gin Blossoms.
On the flip side, with Gin Blossoms, I think this is a better category for them.
Okay.
I think their songs don't hit that same note over and over again in terms of the lyrics.
Sure.
I know we mentioned some sameness in the tunes, but I think the big part of that is, especially early on, you're getting Doug Hopkins, Jesse Valenzuela, and Robin Wilson all contributing to the writing. So that it is, in fact, coming from 3 different places in the band. Sure. And I think that it creates an interesting dichotomy in the sound. because the more experience you can pull from when you write, the better it's going to sound, the better it's going to feel.
Yeah.
And I think this is a group that I'm comfortable putting in the 6s.
Okay. I'll go there with you. How far in are you talking?
Probably a little under a 6.5. I think maybe like a 6.4. I think is a good spot.
Okay.
Just because I don't see anything where it's like my mind is blown at the lyrics. So I don't want to put them up near people that we consider the greats, but varied
but
and
consistently
interesting
very good. Okay. Now we come to X Factor, and I must say that Hole is getting points here.
Yeah,
Kristen Pfaff, 27 Club is automatically at least a point. I forget. I think it's a point that we do for that. And then at that point, I guess it's mostly just kind of influence and like the Courtney thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can easily go maybe even 2 points out of Hole here.
Okay,
I could see it.
Look,
it would basically mean we're saying all of their cultural impact is their X Factor.
Essentially,
I don't disagree with that statement.
Yeah, I agree. We're pretty much there. Did Gin Blossoms have anything in consideration here?
Like the thought process is like they could have it for the whole Doug Hopkins situation and how right at there. I mean, this is a band that was, like I mentioned, getting extremely popular in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Their album exploded after a year. And then right when it exploded and they started hitting the late night talk show host circuit and they started going on all those shows and performing on them, and Doug Hopkins killed himself. And so it's like that then became the story as they're performing and doing all this stuff, touring the album, as like this ex-member of the band who wrote the big hits. Like,
it was an interesting wrinkle.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, I don't think it's quite 2 points, but I could see it being like half a point.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
If you want to go less, that's fine. I mean,
Nah, it's all right.
I don't think it changes anything.
I don't think it changes anything either. But it does change who won every category race. But it doesn't change the overall score. And I'll tell you, winning this week. Oh, very magical. With a score of 26.3 is Gin Blossoms.
Mm-hmm. All right, settle down, everybody. Settle down.
And it wasn't as big of a blowout as last week, but Hole came in with a 17.1. So it was a very solid 9.2 point victory. You know what I need to... We really have got to start coming up with like the spread before every matchup. We should just like post every matchup every Thursday with like a, Gin Blossoms -7.5 or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
Take bets.
That would be fun.
It would actually be a lot of fun.
That would be fun. We got to see if we can. We got to see.
But somehow it has to be made without us knowing.
That's what I was going to say. It has to be somebody we just give one of our like friends the 2 bands and be like, "What do you think the spread will be?"
Exactly.
That would be fun. And then we'll get sponsored by DraftKings. It'll be great.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm really angling for here.
Yeah. Can you imagine if our first sponsor is DraftKings?
DraftKings. It wouldn't make a lot of sense.
Although technically our first sponsor that we read for was Anchor.
That's true. Rip.
Rip Anchor.
Hey, that reminds me. Stay tuned for next week because we are going to cover bands from the 90s. That will be their most prolific period.
Spoiler alert to this entire half season.
Half season, yes.
But it'll be a fun one, I'm sure.
It will.
But thanks, everybody, for tuning in. This has been a fun one. Definitely check out one of these bands. I think that's basically our opinion.
It is.
And do me a favor. As you're listening to all of the Gin Blossoms albums, especially the JFK Shit Show, have a great day.
Holy cow!
Fuck Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah, fuck that guy. We haven't fucked him in a while.
Go pee. What are
All
you
right,
doing?
I'm working on it.
Hey, jealousy. Hey, jealousy. Why? What changed?
Whew. All right, that took a long time.
My credit score jumped 42 points today.
Good for you. Good job.
I'm very confused as to why. Is that just what happens when you get married? Did your credit score change when you got married?
I don't know. It might have.
I'll have to ask Sydney
I know,
if hers
like my
changed.
car insurance rate did.
Yeah. It changed when you got married. That's interesting. I got to check mine.
Because the statistics say like a married person is less likely to get into an accident than a single person or something like that. So
I'll definitely have to check that out then.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be a curious thing.
Yes.
How was Jackie's birthday?
It was lovely. Thank you. We walked to the mall.
Nice.
Had a nice dinner. Walked around. You know, we ate a gummy with dinner as always.
Of course.
We did the same thing on Wednesday, but with the movies. And we saw the new Halle Berry movie.
Okay.
Never Let Go. You know the one I'm talking about, where she has like two kids in a house in the woods that
Yeah.
get tied to ropes, and they're never allowed to let go of the ropes. It was interesting. It was nice. It was one of those ambiguous all the way to the end type films.
Okay. That's fun. That's fun.
Yeah. I haven't even eaten this yet.
Wow.
This delicious snack.
I mean, I'll tell you didn't need it. I think the bong hit you hard enough.
It did, but you know, and then the apple juice.
The apple juice.
But I'm done with all that stuff now, so it's all going to wear away, and this is going to kick in.
That's fair. I get that.
Especially because I'm about to go eat dinner, and then
I know. Oh,
dinner will enhance this, but unhance that.
True. That and such is life.
Yeah, that's right. It's yin and yang.
What are you having? Just a big old steak?
As always.
Every night for you? Just
my classic nacho plate. You know, I'll get some chips.
Just a single nacho.
One nacho. Put some black beans and some corn on there. Put some cheese all over it. I throw that in the microwave.
Yeah.
And I take some peppers and onions and scallions and avocado, dice them all up, pour them all on top of the nachos. And then I go barbecue and hot sauce.
Interesting.
The Tex-Mex. That's the barbecue is my Tex.
Understood. I'm with you.
You know, I'll do other sauces occasionally. Like a chipotle sauce, some sour cream sometimes mixed with it if I have it.
It's so interesting. I'm in such an interesting place right now because I'm on day 2 of steroid pack.
Okay.
And I found out that steroids stop the food noise suppression because because steroids make you hungry. They like mess with your stomach. And I've been like just constantly hungry. Okay. Like I started taking them yesterday at like 4 o'clock is when I got the prescription and I took them. And I want to say by like 6 o'clock, I was like, I need to stay in. I will eat everything. I'm so hungry.
It's how I feel every night at a certain
It's
time.
it was crazy. Well, it's been so long, dude. I can't even tell you the
Oh,
last time
yeah.
I felt hungry.
Right.
Like I eat because it's time to eat, or I'll eat because I feel like my body is like, oh, I need to eat because I
Yeah.
forgot to have eaten.
Yeah.
Like it's been so long since I'm just like, you're hungry. Even when I like get high and shit, I'm just like, yeah, like I'm hungry because I can tell that it's food noise.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll have like a little snack, but like it's not like I'm hungry.
Sure.
It's weird. It's a weird
It
feeling.
is weird.
It's like crazy to me. But it's fine. It's worth it. It's worth it. I'm still dealing with this whole like cellulitis thing.
Hasn't gone away.
So, well, I did a 10-day of Bactrim.
Mm-hmm.
And then I still felt like it was still feeling like weird. And so I called the doctor and I told them like, hey, I don't think it's gone yet. So they gave me another 10-day of Bactrim. And then by the third day of that, it was fine. As in like my leg didn't have like the heat, itchy, pain skin, whatever.
Okay.
But there's a part on the side of my calf that's like this big that just is extremely painful to the touch. Like, and it's like muscle pain. It's like deeper pain. And so I was like, I have to always be careful with that because like my mom went to the hospital for blood clots and shit.
Sure, yeah.
And so I'm like, oh my God, do I have a blood clot? Is that what all this is? Like, so I'm like worried about it. So I call the doctor, I make an appointment. She checks it out and she's like, the first thing she says is like, were you not prescribed a steroid with your antibiotic for cellulitis? And I said, no. And she's like, okay, I think this is like a pocket of inflammation.
Okay.
From the infection that like is slowly being fought by the antibiotic, but needs steroids to reduce the swelling.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, that makes
all right
sense. Like, okay, good. So I took the steroids and it still hurts today, but like maybe half as much.
Gotcha.
I'm like, oh, it's almost like that works. Cause like
it's similar to functioning.
Well, like the reason I got so nervous about the cellulitis the first time, like I didn't even realize it. Like I was just like, oh, my leg hurts. Like, you know, I don't think of shit like that. And be like, I need to go to the doctor. But because my mom had blood clots and I was having a pain and it like mimicked blood clots, I was like, oh, I have to go to the doctor, and found out. So then I thought this time I was like, did I get it the other way around? I thought it was cellulitis and it's actually a blood clot. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, that would be
would not have been ideal.
Nerve-wracking.
But yeah, so that's that.
Okay. Well, good to know. Before I go get food, who would you like for next week? We have Ace of Base and Wilson Phillips.
I'll do Wilson Phillips.
You got it.
I like Wilson Phillips.
I've never heard a single song.
Really? Oh, I like Wilson Phillips.
Okay.
I think you'll enjoy Wilson Phillips. I don't know the whole discography.
I know who Wilson and Phillips are.
Yeah. I don't know their whole discography.
Should make your 6 degrees pretty easy.
Oh, my 6 degrees is going to be very easy, I think. But first one song by them.
Possible.
You know,
I don't know that.
Hold on.
All right, play it.
For one more day. Hold on. Hold on for one more day. It's been in everything. You would have heard it. You've heard it.
Maybe.
Hold on.
Very possible. I know that it was Maya Rudolph's character's favorite group in the movie Bridesmaids, which was the first time I'd ever heard of their existence. And I never bothered to listen to any of their music between then and now.
Did it not share?
Not the sound.
Oh, there we go. It's just starting now. Wow. Restream got real slow for me for a second.
I don't hear anything.
You can't hear it?
Can't hear it.
It's supposed to sound. Yourself.
Can't hear a thing. I will.
Just look up Hold On by Wilson Phillips.
Okay. I'm sure we'll listen to it this week, too.
Oh, I'm sure we will as well. Yeah, I don't know. It's been weird. I don't know if Restream's just
Internet's weird. Technology is no good.
It's also like
time to eat
windy
dinner.
And rainy out right now too. It is time to eat dinner. Go do that.
Tired of that
I'm gonna
wind and rain. All right.
I'm sure my wife is home now. I'll go say hi to her.
Yeah, you should do that. Go enjoy the rest of your evening.
Well, I will see you as well, and I will see you tomorrow.
Excellent.
We shall.
Excellent. I look forward to it.
We shall practice. All right.
Excellent. Adios.
All right, peeps. I'm done. I'm outie. If anybody does see this, I forgot I was wearing a blue shirt, which is why I threw on a jacket in a very warm room and have been overheated this whole time. But we live with that. But y'all have a wonderful evening, a wonderful weekend, and catch you later.